Today is Tuesday, July 26th, 2022, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Andy Schectman. He's the president and co-founder of Miles Franklin. And the reason I have him on, and probably I should have had him on way before as well, but many of you have been asking about the big buyer of silver, the Texas Billionaire, and it's Andy who was the dealer. Well, he's involved in the deal, and I thought that there wouldn't be a better person than Andy to talk about it. So, Andy, welcome to the channel.
I'm a huge fan, Mario. I've been watching you from afar for, I guess, afar meaning across the pond, but I've been watching you just about every day for at least a year now, and it's you're right. You should have had me on before. No, I'm teasing. It's great to be here. I'm honored, and so thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Maybe we can get on to the story about your customer, and the customer wants the world to know this.
No confidence is being
reached. That's right. That's right. So, and maybe you can talk a little bit about yourself and Miles Franklin, because you've been in this business for, I think, 33 years.
Yes, sir, I have. My father and I started the company together in 1989. We've done north of 7 billion in sales without a customer complaint. We're U.S. Mint representatives, one of only 27 in the world, and been around the block. And through that time, Mario, I've never seen a transaction like this. And normally when someone would bring something like this to me, I would chuckle and say, okay, great. You know, it's a nice thought, but you don't expect something like that to happen. And what pretty much was the opinion of most of the people that I spoke to in helping me fulfill this transaction. Bill Holter is a outside representative of mine. I don't know if you know who Bill is, but Bill is fairly well known throughout the industry and is a partner of Jim Sinclair, who was called Mr. Gold in the 70s. But the bottom line is Bill is the outside representative of Miles Franklin who brought this trade to us. And so he called me on a Friday afternoon and he said, Andy, we're going to get a $50 million transaction. And I said, that's great, Billy. And I chuckled really and figured there's not a chance in hell that this happens. He calls me once or twice over the weekend, as he often does. We're friends, not just business associates. I consider him a dear friend. And he was convinced. And now Bill is a straight shooter, someone whom I don't discount anything he says. And his enthusiasm on this particular trade over the weekend had me intrigued, but still doubting, not doubting him, but doubting it would ever happen, because they just don't happen. Anyways, Monday morning rolls around and he says she's going to send the wire today. I said, okay, great. Well, at the end of Monday, no wire came, and I called him and said, I just wanted to let you know we did not receive a wire. And he said to me, well, she went to the bank, the branch, and was told that she needs to go to the main branch, which is about a 3-hour drive from where she lives. I said, okay, no sweat. Tuesday comes along, all day, nothing but crickets. And I call him and I say, hey, Billy, we didn't get the wire today. Just wanted to let you know. And he says, well, she went to the bank. She drove 3 hours. She's staying at her sister's house in where the main branch is. And they say, we won't release the funds because the branch manager is not in. And they kept her in a room for over 2 hours trying to twist her arm, saying, you know, you sure this is what you want to do? And to the point where she got seriously upset, said, if the money is not transferred by tomorrow, I'm going to contact the authorities. And so at this point, you're talking Friday, Monday, Tuesday. This is 3 full days where they would not give her access to her money that was in her bank account. This is a big deal. And this is really the thrust of what she wants everyone to know. As much as she wants the public to know that big money understands what's happening, is transitioning into metals, her main thrust was, hey, you know, getting my money out of my bank account was anything but easy. And so Wednesday rolls along, and we're on day 4 now. And I'm really beginning to, I really don't know what I think, because this kind of follows part and parcel to what I would normally expect to happen. A lot of talk, but no action. Anyways, Wednesday rolls along, and most of the day we receive nothing. And, I talked to Bill. He says, look, she's at the bank right now. We get a call from the bank. Now my ears perk up. Our office receives a call from the bank. And this was maybe the strangest part about the whole thing. The bank had the gall to say, does your company have the ability to fill a transaction like this? Now I'm thinking to myself, what business is it of the bank to ask any of these questions? This is not their money and none of their damn business. And then they asked to validate our wire instructions. Now I'm really curious about all of this. Now I had not even as much as sent the client, and I know Bill didn't either, an email or an invoice to more or less solidify our intentions, if you will. You would think in any endeavor, when you send $50 million to someone, you want to have it in writing that, yes, Mario, we're going to receive your $50 million. Here's an email showing what our intentions are, and we will acknowledge receipt of that wire as soon as we get it. Nothing. And so, I don't know what to expect. About 35 minutes later, I get a phone call from my operations department that indeed we've received a $50 million wire. I almost fell over. And so if you know much about Bill Holter and his partner, Jim Sinclair, they have a very strong belief that the only way to own gold and silver in the United States, for several reasons, would be American-made coins. And that's a good thing, because had she had really no discrimination against anything else, she would have blown up my entire inventory in a matter of 10 seconds, be all gone. So she, following Bill's lead, only wanted American-made coins. We are one of only 27 U.S. Mint authorized resellers. We are high up on the food chain. I've been doing this for over 3 decades, so I know the players that I wanted to work with, and they're big enough to help me fill it. We had 93 or 4,000 Silver Eagles in stock. She ended up buying 930,000 Silver Eagles, which I was able to secure and fill in 2 days, taking allocations into August. So I emptied the shelves, obviously my own inventory, and then of a couple players that I've known for a long time that are incredibly well connected, that helped me do the exact same thing elsewhere. Taking everyone's availability all the way through July and into the second week of August. These are promises that are made by the U.S. Mint to the primary distributors that, yes, you'll get in August. Anyways, these are promises that are made by the U.S. Mint to the primary distributors. Hey, we will, this is what you can expect to receive in July and in August. And so I took all of those allocations into the second week of August, totaling a total of 930,000 silver American Eagles. The balance of the silver portion of the order, up to $27 million, was in pre-1965 dimes and quarters, otherwise known on this side of the pond as junk silver, legal tender that had 90% silver by weight up until 1964, and then some Peace and Morgan silver dollars, the old silver dollars that are basically prior to 1936. And that got her over 1 million ounces of silver to $27 million in total value. And so, in any case, this is only part of the order. $23 million was in gold as well. And so the order in and of itself was unlike anything that I've ever seen, and anyone I talked to in this industry has ever seen, and supposedly only the very beginning for this client, who claims that there will be more coming down the pike. The real impetus of what she wanted to get across to the world, Mario, is that the money in our bank, which we all believe is so liquid and so available, took her the better part of 3 straight days of having to go as far as threatening to pull her, or to pull into the equation, authorities to help free her money from what was anything but a smooth transaction to pay for what she wanted. And then for them to come in and ask us, can you even do this? Are you capable of doing it? It's none of their business. It's no different than when I went to the bank here in Florida a few weeks ago with $4,000 in checks and requested to have $20 bills. And the lady said to me, she said, that's going to be a very big stack. I said, yeah, that's okay. I'm okay with that. And then she asked me what I planned on, knock it off. Sorry. Asked me what I planned on doing with those $20 bills. And so I think that the banks are reluctant to release your funds and inquisitive as what you're going to do with it, all of which is so counterintuitive to what we would think about when we deposit our money in our neighborhood bank. And I think that's really the thrust of what she wanted to communicate to the public.
The other thing I would say is that legally, I guess, when you put money in a bank, it's an unsecured loan to the bank. That's what people also need to understand. One question I have, so she's getting this, the physical gold and silver only, the whole order only in August. Is that right?
No, everything has been delivered up through the allocations that we haven't received yet.
Oh,
so the distributors have been paid. The metal has been shipped, 80-90% of it is already
I see.
on. But some of the stuff that we ordered was future allocations that were promised to the distributors that I purchased in advance.
It just goes to show that when you look at what's happening to the Comex and LBMA prices, you'd think there would be huge supply of real silver out there, but there isn't if she's having to wait a little bit to get her stuff, right?
Mario, there is such a massive disconnection between physical demand and the price on Comex. It makes it so difficult for people to understand just how crazy it is. Look, and this is the truth. I mean, you see the bags under my eyes since February of 2020, and I will put my hand on a Bible and swear to this, that by and large, 5 to 7 days a week, 15 to 18 hours a day, every day is what my life has been. And I'm blessed and I'm not complaining. What I'm simply saying is that the amount of physical demand is so overwhelming that our business is up 6-8-fold since, prior to February 2020. Since that moment, there has been very little, if at all, respite. And if all you were to do was to use the physical demand as your barometer for what the price of metal should be, it would be multiples of what it is right now. And maybe it's because of guys like you who have done such an eloquent, magnificent job. I'm sorry, I know you have dogs, and I have two. One's a puppy, and the puppy the puppy is terrorizing the older dog, and they're
Billy is actually outside in a van getting groomed. His mobile groomers here.
Stop it, Isla. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
In any case, the physical demand is so overwhelming. The business model, the amount of effort that we have to put into bringing the product to the marketplace. When you look at the price, you almost scratch your head and say, what's going on? And that is because you got a handful of commercial banks, which for the first time in the history of the Comex have their smallest short position ever in the history of the Comex. So maybe, just maybe, this type of capping the price is coming to an end. Let's just cross our fingers. And they've double crossed the managed money. But yeah, you're right. The demand in metal is in nowhere near any type of alignment with price on Comex. In fact, they're completely disconnected.
And this billionaire client, she wants to buy, I think you said 6 more times. So it would be around 300 million if she does the same, or
it was between that and up to $1 billion has been discussed. Yeah. And so, here again, I fall back to my same initial, although not quite as skeptical, viewpoint. And it's because we've done 7 billion in sales. We did 600 million last year, Mario. The biggest order I've ever done in 33 years personally is $9 million. And so, these deals don't happen, or maybe they do now. Maybe she's serious. Far be it for me to question her motivation and or intentions, but if I take her for face value, there'll be more to come.
Just one more question before we wrap up, because I know you're a busy man. You spoke in a recent interview, I think it was with Jim Lewis of Wall Street Silver, and you talked about when nickel, when there was a short squeeze in nickel in March on the LME, and that coincided with that big spike in the derivatives holding of precious metals by the big banks.
Yes.
Maybe,
So
yeah.
yeah, so I think if your listeners out there were to Google the OCC, which stands for the Office of the Comptroller Currency, OCC Gold Derivatives 2022. It's a chart that you'll see with a big orange bar on the right-hand side, the first quarter of 2022, showing a 12-year snapshot of the derivative positions on the banks, and every single year it's this big. And if you look at the first quarter of 2022, it's this big out of nowhere. It's a hugely disproportionate. What am I trying to say?
Disproportionate.
Thank you. Disproportionate with the previous decade. And so if you look at that, you see a huge amount of effort that was used to smack down the prices in the first quarter of 2022, and think January, February, March. Well, March 8th, I believe, was the day that the nickel market failed, and it coincided with the all-time high price in gold. And, you know, here we are in the midst of 40-year high inflation, a war in the Ukraine, and you know, one would think that gold should be flying. Well, the nickel market collapses, and as the nickel market collapses, the assumption is it's a wake-up call to the commercial banks, because their position is much larger in both gold and silver than the nickel market. Now, the LME is a 140-year-old institution that's never failed. And when a trade like this goes upside down, it's supposed to be the broker. And if he can't do it, then it's the exchange's ability to coalesce and to make the market whole. Well, they didn't do that. They just canceled it. And made all those trades void. This is a very bad thing to happen for a market like the LME, which is a 140-year-old prestigious market. Would make me think twice about working with them. And I think it was a wake-up call to the banks, because if you look at what happened, you know, you have to understand, on the Comex market, you have typically two very large groups of traders. You have the managed money and the commercials, and it's usually one goes long, the other goes short. And so what the theory is that Ted Butler put out there is that the commercial banks stepped on the price of gold and silver at that moment with that wake-up call. And if you look at the OCC chart, you can really see just how much they put on, which pushed the ball down the hill fast. And that ultimately made the managed money capitulate, gave up after all of this time, and after in this environment, and they're going to smack it again, we're done. The managed money got out and has been selling all the way down, selling their long positions, which then the commercial banks buy, and actually putting on huge amounts of short positions. So they have virtually the smallest short position they've ever had in the history of the Comex. And by contrast, the traders who have been holding the price down for years, so much so that JP Morgan pays $920 million fine for suppressing the market. And right as we speak right now, three of their traders, including Michael Nowak, the head of their trading desk, are facing RICO charges for manipulating the metals market. Admitted to over 50,000 spoof trades, and joked about how the head trader from Bear Stearns came over to JP Morgan, and they taught them all how to do it, and joked that his fingers moved so fast they had to be put in a bucket of ice after. So the reality of this is non-debatable. But what is debatable is, did the commercial banks set a bear trap for the hedge funds? Did they push the ball so far down the hill with such great vengeance first quarter 2021 to make the managed money capitulate, to make the managed money do the dirty work for them? And that is short the price so far down that the commercial banks can cover their old stale positions and actually go long, which it appears to be happening, to the point where they have the smallest short position in the history of the Comex market. I think it bears watching, because they are set to witness a massive rally that, if they sit on the sidelines and do not short the rising market, which is what they are famous for doing. Think GameStop and AMC. When the price is falling, it's easy to short it and push it even further. When the price is rising, if you short something, you better have real deep pockets or strong conviction, because you're going to get squished. So what happens? The commercial banks always have deep enough pockets to continue to pile shorts on until they overwhelm the longs. If they don't do that this time, if they just sit on the sidelines as the price rises, or add to their long positions, to which they are net long, you're watching a massive event that would blow up many of these hedge funds and push the price stratospheric. Was this the wake-up call that they needed? Was this the wake-up call that said, if you don't get your house in order, you have the potential to blow up the 140-year existence of the LME and the Comex and expose all of this? Time to get your house in order. And that's really what I was getting at. And you know, here again, oftentimes, Mario, I feel like the little boy who cries wolf, but I will tell you that at the end of the story, the last page of that story, you know who comes? The wolf does. One of these days, the wolf is going to come, and the price is going to go to the moon based upon the fundamentals that are already supporting it, if it not for the manipulation of the banks that are derailing that very serious motivation.
Yeah, and as Jim Sinclair said in his Pocketbook of Gold, ultimately gold is the true revealer of wealth. And if you look back to the 08-09 crisis, gold went up to 1900 in 2011, when the balance sheet of all the central banks was fractions of what it is now. It makes no sense that we are around 1700. So
I'd like to make one comment about that. If you look at 2008 and you look at 2020, and you mentioned 08 to 2011. So in 2008, the backdrop of what we're seeing right now on Comex is very similar, with the exception that it's nowhere near as short, nowhere near as small of a short position. So in 08, the commercial banks, their short position was as small as it had been in a very long time, if not ever, then, which is a fraction of what it is now. But in using that same metric, this same playbook, nowhere near as with the vengeance that we've seen now, and the tiny short position now. In 08, when that happened, the price moved up almost five-fold in the ensuing 3 years. And in 2020, when they did the same thing, again, nowhere near as small a short position as we see now, it moved up 2.5 times in 6 months. I'm talking about silver. So look, the playbook is there. Now it's like they've thrown the Hail Mary. And you're right. You will, if it follows suit, I would expect to see a massive rally. And I don't know if it's over 6 months or over 3 years, but I do know that they are in position to witness a substantial price increase. And if you believe a guy like Ted Butler at face value, and I do, where he says JP Morgan has amassed 1.1 billion ounces of physical silver and 45 million ounces of physical gold. It's the largest physical position of metal the world's ever seen. It's 11 times what the Hunt brothers tried to accumulate. In the end, they wouldn't have done this if they didn't expect to see rising prices. He calls it a double cross, that they're actually been long in Comex metal for a while. It's the other commercial banks that have been doing the dirty work, and maybe these are the ones that have finally wised up and are trying to cover their tracks, cover their positions, because we live in a world where shorting gold and silver right now, as the rest of the world is visibly de-dollarizing in the light of Putin and Xi coming out and saying they're issuing a world reserve currency to challenge the dollar, and in the light of OPEC saying we're going to join BRICS nations, in the light of Saudi Arabia and Nigeria being protected by Russia, which is what gives us the dollar hegemony, and selling their oil for China for the yuan-denominated bond, which is immediately convertible into gold. These things are happening at such speed that going short gold and silver right now to the level that they have not only will blow up the exchanges, but will bankrupt some of these massive institutions. And the systemic nature and the ramifications of that, I think, was something that made them all take a step back and say, time to clean house. And maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe this is the last page of The Little Boy Who Cried Wolf. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's still a chapter or two to go. But I will say that it's a very unusual situation to see the commercial banks retreat the way that they have.
Great, great, Andy. Thank you for your time. And before we close off, could you tell the viewers, my North American viewers, where they can find your details online if they want to deal, precious metals through Miles
Certainly.
Franklin?
I appreciate that. We're building a brand new website that we intend to launch here in August that'll allow a little bit more transparency. We have been old school, Mario. We've been doing this for so long. I've always believed that gold and silver belong in an analog world, not in a digital one. I have finally acquiesced enough to the masses to dip my toe in a digital world with our new website. But for now, they can go to our website, which is the last few days of its life, milesfranklin.com. And if you want a price list, which I will assure your North American viewers will be amongst the very best in North America, from a company that's never had a customer complaint in 33 years and is maybe one of the only major licensed and bonded precious metals companies in the United States because of our corporate office being in the state of Minnesota, which is the only state that regulates what is a federally non-regulated industry. Send us an email. Say Mario sent me at info@milesfranklin, info@milesfranklin. And it'll be my promise to your listeners that I will personally assist and make sure that they get the very best price in the country, personal service. And I got to tell you, it's just an honor to be here. I'm so sorry that I had Puppy and the other dog terrorizing one another and disrupting. I hope it wasn't too bad because I was so much looking forward to being here and chatting with you, and hope we get to do this in person one day. I know we have a lot in common, the love of golf, the love of economics, and I think you will be someone I'd like to spend a few hours with on the golf course with a couple of beers.
Yeah, me too. And don't worry about the dogs. People are used to Billy anyway, so not a problem. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks for having me, Mario. Stay well and stay cool.